Welcome to Brand Me. I'm Preston Konrad, and on this show, we'll talk all things branding, from launching a product line to owning your side hustle. We'll talk to the movers, the shakers, the thought leaders. What do you say we finally stop focusing on brands X, Y, and Z and focus on Brand Me? Let's start the show. Hey everybody, I'm Preston Konrad, and on today's episode, we are going to dive into all things personal branding. We have the most exciting season lined up of Brand Me with some amazing guests, and I can't wait for you to meet them all. But before we get into those episodes, I thought it would be important for us to kind of get to know each other and to dive into kind of the foundation of personal branding. What the hell is a personal brand, and why do I need one? And I think those are really two important questions that we don't seem to ask each other or ask ourselves a lot, especially in this new age and new era of everybody talking about personal branding. I think it's important we get those questions out of the way. So on today's show, we're going to dive into that. I'll give you guys some references about how they're applicable to me and how I used those two questions to build my personal brand. And then we'll kick off the season. So I'm so happy to have you with me for this season of Brand Me, and let's get into it. So I think it's important that we ask ourselves, what is a personal brand? I think, I talk about it on Instagram all the time and say, my brand, and I have products to sell. So it kind of makes sense, obviously, that I'm talking about my personal brand. But for a lot of you listening, and a lot of my friends, maybe you don't have a product line. Maybe you work for another company and you love your job. I worked for brands for 15, 20 years and I absolutely loved it. But it's important to understand what a personal brand is. And there's actually this quote from Jeff Bezos, obviously founder of Amazon, that I find really interesting. And I hold it pretty closely to me. And that quote is, your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. And I think that quote carries a lot of weight for me because my brand is based on me and my name. And I think it's important that we consider what others think of us and say about us when we're not in the room. And that leads me to kind of my recap, which is really that a personal brand is the special combination of experiences, outputs, and expertise that make you who you are and make you different from everyone else, right? I think that's something to really hone in on, is that your personal brand is a culmination of all those things: experiences, outputs, and expertise, and what sets you apart from everybody else. For me, I often have to remind myself of this because obviously I launched a home fragrance collection and we launched with candles. And I am not the only person in the world to launch a candle brand. Far from it. There are thousands of candle brands. But what makes my brand, my personal brand, different is that it's made by me and that I've built it from the ground up. I designed the logo with my team. I've done A through Z of the brand from my point of view. And that's what sets me apart from everybody else. And when you take a step back and look at kind of the era we're in, and you look at someone like a Gary Vee or Oprah even, right? Those are great examples of people who have really honed in on their personal brand and they've leaned into their niche. And I think it's important to talk about niche as well. And there's a lot of chatter, especially on Instagram right now, about niche and growth hacks online, specifically related to niche. And Gary Vee does a really great job of that, kind of just only posting content about social media, growth, digital marketing, and that's kind of his lane. And that has turned really into his personal brand. And Oprah kind of has done the same thing, right? From hard-hitting interviews to big wins with celebrities to asking the hard questions. That niche of hers is what sets her apart from any other reporter or television personality. So again, it's that culmination of your experience, output, and expertise that really build the foundation of your personal brand. And we're going to get into pillars, brand pillars later on in the season, but it's important to think about also what are the pillars of that brand that hold your brand up. For myself, it's really kind of 4 pillars, 4 buckets, right? My business is accessible style, being kind to people, and living a well-balanced life, right? Those are the things that I base my brand on, that I blend in with my unique experiences that kind of dictate my personal brand. But again, it's really about telling your story and curating your digital presence. And most importantly, keeping it authentic and real, because you are what differentiates yourself from brand X, Y, and Z. brand me, right? So now that we've talked a bit about what a personal brand is, I think it's important that we ask ourselves, why do we need a personal brand, right? Like you might be listening to this show and you're like, I love my job. I'm just listening to you in the car on the way to work right now. I don't need a personal brand. But what is important to realize is that you may not even realize it now, but you have a personal brand already. I mean, you do. We all do. I mean, we are in a digital first era. When you Google yourself, what pops up? What are the first hits, right? Believe it or not, those are really the first impressions that someone will have of you. Is it a good one? Is it a risky one? Is it a positive one? Is it consistent across all of your social platforms, your website, your LinkedIn? You know, that is your personal brand. Whether you like to believe it or not, it already exists. So I think what's so important about why it's time to take control of your personal brand and own your narrative is that it's out there already, and it's time for you to clean it up and you to tell the story on your own terms. And maybe that's for a job interview. Maybe that's for meeting a potential investor for a business idea you have. Maybe it's for starting your life as an influencer on Instagram. It's important to realize that you have the full control to take your personal brand into your own hands and communicate it the way that you like it to be communicated, which I've, for the last couple of years, have really taken a hard look at and really made a priority for me, right? It's owning my own narrative. Social media is constantly growing. TikTok exploding. You know, what is your personal brand on TikTok? How does it vary from what's on LinkedIn? And how does that vary from what you posted at that keg party in 2008 on Facebook? Because it very quickly can take a life of its own if you don't have a good control of it. So, you know, it's important to realize that you already you already have a personal brand. Now it's time to get in there, clean it up, and then do some things with it, right? So if we were to boil this down into 4 important reasons why you need a personal brand, realizing that you already have one, I would say it would be these 4 things. 1, your personal brand differentiates you. Right? It sets you apart from the competition. I had a follower during COVID. I actually had a branding summit that I did on Zoom. I was desperate for communication and for contact with you guys. And I just really missed communicating face to face with people. So I hosted this free Zoom and I said, hey, anybody who's following me, here's the link to the Zoom. Come online. Let's talk about branding. How can I help you? I own a creative agency. I'm starting my own company. Maybe I can help you guys in this time of stress or pivot or whatever. And we had a lot of people come onto the Zoom, and I had a guy ask me a question saying, hey, I'm a fashion designer down in Florida, and I don't know how to differentiate myself and start my own personal brand. And to me, it was actually, it was a really interesting inquiry, because my first thought was to ask him, well, what makes you different? And he's like, well, you know, I use sustainable fabrics and everything's done by hand. I said, okay, cool. We've already narrowed it down 2 niches. You make it by hand, handmade fashion that's sustainable. We just keep narrowing it down and down and down. And by the end of this little brand work session, this branding breakout that I had with this follower, we had kind of honed in on what his personal brand was all about. It was what made him different than designer number A and B, or letter A and B that was at the next store down the road. So it's important to realize, number 1, that your personal brand differentiates you. So if you're having trouble identifying what that is, for example, me in Candle World, what makes me different? Well, we're under $50. We're 100% vegan wax. We use sustainable materials. There's no bad ingredients. We're all made in America. And it's a personality-born brand. There you go. Like, I kept narrowing it down and down and down and down to get the differentiator out to the forefront. So number 1, your personal brand will differentiate you. Number 2 reason of why you need a personal brand is that it can open up brand new doors for you. And I alluded to this in the beginning of the episode, but maybe it's something as simple as you applying for a new job, right? You are not a freelance person. You love the 9-to-5. That is awesome. I did it forever. Your personal brand can open completely new doors for you. How you show up online could get you that next job. It could also open up new doors as a freelancer or a brand builder or an entrepreneur. It could land you the investment. It could get you on television. It could get you press. It could win you an award. So your personal brand and the care that you take in developing it, nurturing it, it's very much like a plant, a personal brand. I have to say, it's like you want to grow it, nurture it. It's like a chia pet. You want to see it flourish. And when you take care of it, it can open up new doors for you. So I think that's important to realize as number 2. Number 3 reason of why you need a personal brand is another thing I alluded to before, is that it builds trust. It builds trust with your followers, your customers, your audience. They want to believe in you and root for you. As scary as it feels to put yourself out there to the universe, your audience, your followers, your customers, they want to trust you, believe in you, and they want to support you. So the more authentic you can be, the more real you can be, and the more transparent you can be about your practices, your background, your history, the history of your business, how you got to where you are today, will only develop a more solid foundation for people to be able to support you with, whether that's monetarily or with a follower account number, whatever it may be. It's really the foundation is trust of your personal brand. And you want to make sure you're establishing that from the ground up. I think that's a reason why I'm having such a great time with Preston Konrad Home, is that you guys, whether you follow me on Instagram or not, or maybe you're new to this podcast, is that a lot of you know me. And you've known me since 2012, 2013, when I started putting my life on Instagram. And there's an inherent built-in trust there after a decade. And people feel like they know me, they believe in me, they watch me do A, B, and C. And now I have a brand, and there's a inherent built-in level of trust there. And the followers are now turning into customers, which is really important. So number 3, a personal brand will build trust with your followers. And number 4, I said this at the very top of the show, but number 4 reason of why you need a personal brand is that people will be looking at you online forever. It sounds so scary, but if you Google yourself or you LinkedIn yourself or you get deep dark on your Facebook hole and look down at the pictures that you posted in 2007 at a college party, they are an imprint, a fingerprint, a footprint that can linger with you for a pretty long time. So, again, revisiting what your existing personal brand is and deciding which direction you want to take it is really important, because people will be looking at you online forever. There's a really funny thing, like when I Google myself, it's so bizarre. When I Google myself, on the right-hand side of Google, by the way, I try to make it a habit of not Googling myself. I think it's not healthy practice, but if you do, for business purposes only, when I do, it says a TV actor. I have never acted a day in my life, and I don't know how it says it there, and I can't figure out how to change it for the life of me. But people see that when they first Google me. And I think that's important to realize, is that your digital presence will be there forever and people will always be looking at it. So number 4 reason why you need a personal brand is that people will always be looking at you. So you have the power to decide what they're going to say about you and how you're going to be remembered. So those are some of the reasons why you need a personal brand and what a personal brand is. Throughout the course of this season, guys, we're going to talk to some really, really important people, both in my life and in their respective industries, and hear more about their stories and how it can help you build your personal brand, launch your product line, establish your presence on social media. And I'm so, so excited for you to meet everybody throughout the course of the show. So buckle in tight, put on your thinking caps, and I can't wait to go on this ride with you. For more on the show, you can find us on Instagram at Brand Me Podcast or at Preston Konrad. Be sure, of course, to rate, review, and subscribe and share on social. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you next week.